Welcome to a special Friday All49ers Roundtable. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Maverick, Pallack. And below us is Chuy Marquez, the newest member of All49ers. He calls him the Cohn phone almost every weekend, and now he writes for the All49ers website. Chuy, great to have you here. How you doing?
Doing good, Grant. I appreciate you having me on today.
Well, I appreciate you coming. Let's get into it. We got some Niner stuff to talk about. Chuy suggested this topic, and I like it. It's spicy. So I'll lead into it, but Chuy, I want you to hit this first. Are the 49ers still suffering from the Super Bowl hangover?
So, yeah, that's a question that I brought up. A couple of reasons why. We'll start off with state of the franchise. I don't know how many times they reference 2019, and we're looking at, once the season starts, being 19 months removed from that Super Bowl loss. So to me, it seems like, why are we still talking about 2019? We've had a whole new season. We're still trying to compare ourselves to that 2019 Super Bowl season. And to me, it just seems like they're stuck in the past a little bit. Why do you keep talking about it? I heard Jed York say that we're going to raise an NFC Championship banner, maybe during the opening night in Santa Clara. This is from 20 months ago at that point. Why are we even going to go through that celebration? We're not the defending NFC champions anymore. So it's just a little bit odd to me that they're still talking about this. The revenge tour last year didn't really work out. So I don't know why we're still on this topic.
What do you think, Maverick?
It's a good point, honestly, there's a new NFC champion. So raising the NFC championship banner is a really weird thing in that when you go from that perspective. I understand wanting to celebrate your successful season in front of your fans because they didn't want to do that, but it is a little odd because the reigning NFC champion is the reigning Super Bowl champion, and that's a team that they kind of have to take down if they want to do that delayed revenge tour that people are talking about. So it is a little weird, but a lot of things are weird in the Niners ownership brass.
Yeah. I think it's like, what is the Super Bowl hangover? I feel like for the 49ers, that 2019 season is very important for them because if that season was a fluke, then what have they built here? Then it's very bleak, the outlook. But if that season was the true culmination of their planning and last year was the fluke, then 2019, even though they didn't win it, was like the foreshadowing of the next era of consistent winning. I think that's why they keep coming back to it. It's like, that was our true selves. That's who we are. And I guess you could say, well, not really. I mean, you're always changing your team. That team wasn't good enough. If you're stuck in 2019, you're not going to be able to improve now. It's interesting. I guess it's hard to really say what the Super Bowl hangover is. Maybe it's different for every team. It'll be interesting to see how it affects the Chiefs this year. But for the 49ers, I think it's a little bit of denial. Like, they tell themselves that they should have won that Super Bowl. They really were the best team. Like, they were winning and they let it go. Had they done this or they really got a holding call on Bosa. I think that it's a little bit of denial.
When you look at the state of the franchise, they referenced, are we better than the 2019 season instead of are we better than the 2020 season?
2020 season, yes. Like the 2020 season was the fluke when it's possible the 2019 season was the fluke. It's a very interesting thing. Hey, good point, Chuy. The other thing I want to say is the one piece of evidence you could point to for them being beyond the Super Bowl hangover is Trey Lance's presence on this roster. They're not running it back with Jimmy a second time. And it's just so interesting that the Niners didn't mention Trey Lance once in that state of the franchise. They should have been mentioning him every 2 seconds. And it's kind of strange how they decided. So since you decided to ignore Trey Lance, you had to focus on stuff like this, right? At the state of the franchise.
Have you ever seen a team that picked a quarterback, their new face of the franchise, and then at the state of the franchise, just like you said, not really mention him?
Maverick, can you account for that? I don't get it. I still don't get it.
He should be on every billboard, shouldn't he?
They should be so proud of him. Why would you not be?
3 years in him.
Instead, they're taking pictures, like glamour shots of Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, hey, Jimmy, can you look this way? It's like Zoolander. All odds. Can you give us blue steel? We want blue steel. We want to sell this jersey. It's like I feel like the Niners we're going off topic here. But the Niners like how they can profit off of Jimmy Garoppolo. They can sell his jersey. They can sell his bobblehead. He brings fans to the stadium, or he did at one point. He's very profitable for them. I just can't help but notice that.
Well, when we talk
Lance should be
about
too,
that,
though.
when we talk about that, Grant, you know, who organizes the state of the franchise? It's not the coaching staff. It's not Kyle
No.
Shanahan. It's the front office,
Ownership.
the PR
Ownership.
department,
Yep.
ownership. So it seems like there's still a disconnect there for whatever reason. I'd be interested once training camp comes around to see what's actually going to happen. Is there actually going to be a competition? Are they going to say, okay, Lance is ready? It's just very odd to me. And like Mav pointed out, you know, that guy, Trey Lance, should be on every billboard. He should be in every shot that they did, the jersey. You know, it should have been Trey Lance and Jerry Rice, not Jimmy Garoppolo and Jerry Rice when they unveiled the jerseys. It's just,
that is true.
It's a little odd. I've never seen anything like this before.
Yep. There's something else I wanted
This
to say.
This is why I brought up the fact of the Super Bowl hangovers. To me, it seems like they're still stuck in that, you know, coming into that offseason. Like, move on already.
I think it's Jed though, because like let's go through the timeline of why this Super Bowl hangover could be a Jed thing. I mean, remember when he went to 3 straight NFC Championship games with Harbaugh? He was on the record saying, "Well, we don't hang up NFC Championship banners." He said that. I was there. This is the 49. He was like walking around like he was Eddie DeBartolo, right? Like, we don't put up NFC. We celebrate championships here. And he basically ran off Jim Harbaugh for not being able to get over the hump. And he took a lot of crap for that. I mean, he followed up Harbaugh with Tom Sula, with Chip Kelly. It looked like he was the problem and needed to go. And now the fact that he has Kyle, I feel like Jed is Jed. In his mind, it validates everything he's ever done. Like, I was right to get rid of Harbaugh. It led me to Kyle. And if Kyle is a mirage as well and 2019 was a fluke, then where is Jed? He's back at square one, right? He's built nothing. He has no accomplishments. He has Levi Stadium, which no one likes. That's Jed. So I think it means a lot for him, for Kyle to be the right choice and 2019 to be the foreshadowing of success to come. Otherwise, Jed has still built nothing about almost 15 years into his tenure, while Eddie DeBartolo hired Bill Walsh when he was 34. So maybe this is a Jed thing.
See. I mean, to me, it seems like they're acting like last year never happened, and it did happen. It's a little odd. To me, I would be very upset about last season, the results. Obviously, it was a challenging season with COVID going on, but you know, we were 6-10 last year, so I would be upset. I'd be like, hey, we're coming back this year, coming back with a vengeance, and all they're talking about is the Super Bowl season. It's just very odd.
Also, you don't talk about this in the state of a franchise, but it's still the main question. You've had injury issues 8 seasons in a row. What have you done to fix this issue? And why didn't those measures help anything in OTAs? But that question wasn't going to get asked in state of the franchise. Let's move on and talk about some positive things. In your opinion, which 49ers player will improve the most in 2021 and why? Maverick, you start.
Right now, the 2 guys I was thinking about most are, and Grant, you might kick me off the stream when I say this.
Don't say Mitch Wishnowsky.
No. I was going to say, I think Mike McGlinchey and Laken Tomlinson will improve.
Fair.
And I'm not saying necessarily to 9th overall pick improvement, but I think Aaron Banks is a gamer. Having him next to him won't let Mike McGlinchey get bullied by a nickelback anymore. There will be a 320-pound right guard there to help McGlinchey out. And then same with Laken Tomlinson, hopefully having Trent Williams for a full season and then having Alex Mack at center. I think Tomlinson had to do a lot when it was School on his left and Brunskill on his right, and having 2 very talented Pro Bowl caliber players on his left and right should help him, and they'll both improve.
I think Mav makes a good point there. I think McGlinchey is going to have a lot of improvement this season. I think Aaron Banks alone is going to really help him out. That's kind of where he had his most success of his career, I think, was at Notre Dame whenever he had, you know, the all-pro guard now in the NFL there right next to him. So I think that's going to pay huge dividends for Mike McGlinchey. So I think he'll have a rebound year. My breakout player this year, well, he's not really a breakout. His breakout was in the 2019 season, but I think he's going to get closer to that type of production again. That's Eric Armstead. I think Armstead is going to be able to play a more natural position to himself this year. He'll play inside a little bit more. And I think that's where he does the most damage, is when he's playing inside, because he doesn't really have refined pass rush moves. So I think when they try to put him on the edge and beating tackles one-on-one, I just don't think that's his strong suit. So I think Mike McGlinchey is in line to have a big season this year. Or, I'm sorry, Armstead.
Yeah. Another one you could argue is Javon Kinlaw, for the exact same reasons you just listed for Armstead. The first time I saw Kinlaw, I said, Armstead. That is Armstead. In a good way. Very powerful, not extremely refined in terms of his technique and pass rush moves. Armstead's a good player. Kinlaw's a good player. I think if they're playing next to each other on the interior, they're gonna push the pocket very effectively. And if you have Nick Bosa, Samson Ebukam, Armstead and Kinlaw could just run into sacks. Armstead ran into a lot of sacks in 2019. So Kinlaw could be one, even though I don't agree with the DeForest Buckner trade, and I don't think he's ever going to be like that, but he could have a really good year. And also Emmanuel Moseley. This is a guy who is now going to be the starter, unquestioned, no competition, all the starters reps, all offseason. He looks like he's in terrific shape. If he stays healthy, through training camp, if he doesn't pull anything in training camp, he should have a ton of work, and he should have a much better season than last year. He could end up being a quality starting corner. Anyone else we're missing?
Mitch Wisnowski, you still want that?
Yeah, Mitch. Yeah. All right, well, then let's look at it
I hope Raheem Mostert would be one of those players. If he is able to stay healthy all season, I think he can actually put up really good numbers, even if his touches per game are not that much. I think just being able to stay healthy over the course of the season, he can rack up 900, maybe 1,000 yards on the season. So I think Raheem Mostert could fall into that category as well.
Fair. Other side of the coin. The 49ers player who will regress the most in 2021. Now, I have been asked this question in 2018, 2019, 2020. It always would have been the same answer. Richard Sherman. And I would have been right last year, maybe not the other 2 years. But Richard Sherman's gone now. Curious to think who you guys think will have the biggest drop-off this year. So just be a hater for no reason. Just hate on someone for no good reason.
Well, I don't like to do this, but it's actually going to be one of your players that you think is going to take a step forward. I think Emmanuel Moseley is going to take a step backwards this year.
Oh, wow.
I think, there was sort of a mirage last season when Emmanuel Moseley got onto the field. When he got in after an injury or somebody got benched and he got put into the game, he seemed to play a lot better than when somebody was injured ahead of time and everybody knew he was going to be the starting cornerback. That gave teams a little bit of time to game plan for him. And I think we saw, DK Metcalf, saw some people have some big games. And Emmanuel Moseley, I think when you give defensive coordinators time to actually game plan for him is when he seems to have a lot of issues performing at a high level.
I don't see a lot of regression just because so many guys were injured last year that it's hard to regress on that. But one guy I'm interested in is K'Wan Williams. I like K'Wan Williams. I think he's very talented, but I'm curious to see how D'Amico Ryans runs his defense differently than how Robert Saleh did, where Robert Saleh put his nickel back in a lot of favorable situations with that nickel blitz, also getting Williams a lot of highlight plays. And I just want to see how D'Amico Ryans uses that. Is D'Amico Ryans going to want to have more linebackers on the field, and that decreases Williams' playing time? There's a lot of questions I'm very anxious or very excited to see answered in the coming weeks once the season starts.
Okay. I guess that's a tough one. I guess I'm going to go with Jason Verrett in the sense that he played really, really, really well last year. And the odds of him repeating it, I don't know. He's had a lot of injuries. I guess I don't think that he's going to play 17 games and fall off. My question is, how many games will he play? So Jason Verrett would be a question. Mosley's a good one too. I can't think. I mean, Armstead kind of fell off last year. He would have been a good candidate last year, but there's not much room more that he could fall. Am I missing anyone? I mean, Laken Tomlinson could be one. He's an older guard who's probably not going to be on the team next year. Maybe Laken Tomlinson too, although I know you believe in him. Maybe Laken.
I think a player
Alex Mack. Alex Mack. That's a good one. He's 36
he wasn't on our team last season, but I think just age alone, he can regress. He was already starting to fall off last season. I think it's like the lowest graded PFF season of his career. So to me, that could be spelling trouble for for Alex Mack.
Absolutely. And going back to the player who could improve the most, someone who wasn't on the team last year, Ebicom, moving from linebacker to defensive end, a full year working with Chris Kosarick, playing alongside Bosa, Kinlaw, Armstead. Ebicom could go from having like 14 career sacks to 9 sacks in the season or something like that. So just want to throw him out there too, as long as we're expanding the list.
How about offensive players? None of us besides the line. Do we have any skill position players we think that might take a step back?
Well, my question is, I don't want to. What about George Kittle, man? He missed 8 games last year. Where is he trending? Is he getting better? Is he getting worse? I'm curious because he's 28 and he's really played a very physical brand of football for 4 years. So he'd be someone I would think would regress more than someone like Debo. I mean, I'm not saying Kittle's going to regress, but I put him as a candidate before I would mention Debo or Ayuk or who else is there? Trent Williams? I don't think Trent Williams is going to regress too much, although he's a 30-something-year-old offensive lineman.
I think
What do you think
having
about Debo? What do you think about Debo Samuel? I mean,
he
Debo
regressed
plays
last
the
year.
Same type of physical football, and he regressed last year because of injuries, the way George Kittle
Yeah.
sort of did.
Yeah.
So
I guess those two are similar. What do you think, Mav?
I think just having, a taste of NFL action after missing a year for Trent Williams and then having a taste of a couple injuries and the COVID issue, also just getting Trent Williams back, I think he'll be much better. Maybe not the All-Pro 2000. What was that? 2017 when he was an All-Pro lockdown left tackle, but he just has to be what he was last year for 17 games, and if he does that, then there should be a lot more production on the offensive line. Plus, if there's a quarterback that runs a sub 4.7 40, that should also help the left tackle a little.
Definitely. All right. So the 49ers player who regressed the most, there you have it. Let's move on. The position on the 49ers that needs more depth. This roster isn't necessarily done. They could make more moves. Mav, what do you think?
Well, I think that they have to not necessarily upgrade, like getting I know a lot of people want Melvin Ingram, Justin Houston, all that, those flashy names, but they just need to add more depth to the defensive ends because, as Chuy was saying earlier, Eric Armstead is much better inside. He's very talented when he gets to play. He's versatile. He can play both. But on passing downs, I'd rather see Eric Armstead inside than outside. And you have Nick Bosa, who's coming off an injury. You also, even if he comes back from the injury successfully, you don't know how many, or if he's going to get all 17 games from him, and if it's going to be 2019 form Nick Bosa. Then on the other side, you have Samson Ebicom, who is transitioning from 3-4 linebacker to 4-3 defensive end. I know those are very similar positions, but he's going to have to pass rush a lot, and he's the number 2 guy now. He doesn't have Aaron Donald next to him now. So there's a lot of issues there. And then Jordan Willis' suspension, that hurts the depth there. Yep. I think they need to re-sign Dion Jordan as soon as possible. I know a lot of people also want Demontre Moore back. And then I think they got to use training camp when teams are cutting all their guys because of salary cap issues, or teams that got defensive end in the first 2 rounds that didn't think they were gonna, and they can move on from a veteran. The 49ers need to grab a couple of those guys and let one of the highest paid assistant coaches in the NFL, Chris Kosarick, do his magic.
Good call.
So one question I have is there's 2 groups that I'm looking at that really have depth issues on our team. That's our cornerback position. We're banking on 2 rookies to come in and actually contribute. And if one of our starting cornerbacks were to get injured, we really don't have anybody besides rookies to step in and play. So to me, I think that's like our biggest position that has the least depth on our roster. The second one is the offensive line. I mean, sure, it should be improved from last season, but again, we're banking on Aaron Banks. We're banking on who was the tackle
Jalen Moore.
Jalen Moore, yeah. So we're banking on rookies to come in and make an impact immediately. To me, I mean, that's especially once we lost school for the season. Those are really, I think, areas that we have unproven players that we're counting on as depth, but we don't know for sure how they're going to pan out.
Yeah, at least the Niners went out and got Jalen Moore, and they still have Daniel Brunskill. They lost Justin School, and that's a big problem. They have Sean Coleman. Who knows what he can do? You mentioned cornerback. That's legit. Now, they do have Diamador Lenore and Ambry Thomas, so they tried. I don't know if that's good enough, but they tried. They're definitely thin at defensive end. I'm going to say another spot on the defense, safety. I mean, Jaquiski Tartt missed a bunch of games last year. Tavarius Moore is gone for a while. The top backup is Tony Jefferson, who hasn't really played much since tearing his ACL. And then after him is Talanoa Hufanga. So it seems like they could definitely use another safety, whether it's Malik Hooker, Earl Thomas, Ronnie Lott, someone. They could, Burton Hanks could really use Deshaun Goldson. I don't know. Eric Davis. No, Eric Reed is what I meant to say. Someone. Because really, if Jaquiski Tartt played 17 games, that's more than you can expect, given his track record. So it's interesting. I feel like the defense isn't that deep. They have good starters, but everything we mentioned was the D ends, very deep at D tackle. They're not particularly deep at linebacker. They got some undrafted free agents they like backing up, and they're very thin in the secondary. So that's Ryans is walking a tightrope that he didn't create. Interesting.
Yeah, one injury at linebacker, and Azeez Al-Shaair is the top guy out there. And I don't know if they're comfortable with Azeez Al-Shaair playing
100% your snaps.
Yeah,
that's right. It really seems like there's a ton of depth on offense. Deep wide receiver room, deep running back room, deep tight end room, deep quarterback room.
This
so
is
that's
odd
interesting
because it's sort of a shift from previous years where the defense was a lot deeper and the offense
super
was
deep. When they went in 2019, I felt like the defense was deep in 2019. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Mav also mentioned something interesting with the D'Amico Ryans. You know, he came up in a 3-4 defensive system. So I don't know if we're going to see some of that. Are we going to have the 4 linebackers out on the field? It's going to be a little bit different, I think, from Robert Saleh's defensive scheme. So that's going to be interesting. You know,
True. Samson Ebicom was a 3-4 player on the Rams too. Maybe they'll have more looks.
And if you look at what James Betcher's defense was with the New York Giants, they were all 300-plus pound defensive linemen. True. And that they've shown that this offseason on signing Mo Hurst and signing Zach Kerr. They're putting an emphasis on those defensive line guys. And another thing what Betcher did where he would bring Jabril Peppers down into the box. So you might see that with Tony Jefferson is kind of like who you mentioned is kind of that strong safety that can play in the box. And they might be doing that a lot more instead of going 3 linebackers, have an extra safety on the field to play that Jimmy Ward, Tony Jefferson, whoever they want, because Betcher did that a lot.
Would you call that big nickel? 5 DBs, 3 safeties? Yeah.
Yeah, like college defense too, where it's just a bunch of NFL safeties. Yeah. And
I know he's worked with Tony Jefferson before in Arizona, so Jefferson just has to show that he's back and he's ready to play. Who's the guy they had last year? Cyprian? Maybe they get him. I don't know. All right, last question of the day. We got a half-hour show, a brief show on this Friday afternoon. The deepest position on the team, and on a positive note, the deepest position on the 49ers.
Mav, I'll let you start on this one.
Oh, okay. I'm starting. I'm going to go that the deepest position for right now is the defensive line or the interior defensive line, not not edge rusher. But that depends on if they do address edge rusher, because if Eric Armstead's allowed to go inside, having Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, Mo Hurst, there's a couple starting caliber players that might be cut this training camp. Who knows if Kevin Givens makes the team? Zach Kerr, who they spent money on, he might end up being a roster casualty. There's a lot of guys on the interior defensive line. And then if I throw out another one, how about
Contavious Street's good.
Yeah, Contavious Street, he might be a roster cut too. There's a lot of guys. And then strong safety, just because I think they have 9 strong safeties on the roster, and Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt are the only free safeties.
True. Tavon Wilson was another one.
So Mav went defensive side of the ball. I think 2 areas on the offensive side of the ball that are strengths and deep are the quarterback position. I mean, that was a weakness last season when Jimmy Garoppolo went down. We had nobody. I'm sorry, Grant. I know we had Nick Mullins.
Sorry, I can take it.
We had nobody behind him. So this, whoever plays, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, if we end up keeping Jimmy, so that's subject to change. We also have Josh Rosen, who started multiple games in the NFL. So we have, I think, completely transformed the quarterback room to where it's actually a strength as of right now. Now, if we lose 1 or 2 of those guys, then maybe that can change. But another position on offense is going to be running back. Even though we lost Wilson for the season, we still have, Trey Sermon, we have Raheem Mostert, we have Michael Hasty, we have the 6th round running back we drafted as well. So there's a lot of depth there at the running back position.
Yeah, there's also depth at tight end. Ross Dwelly's probably the best backup tight end in the league. And seriously, and you got Michael Pruitt. He's a good blocker. And you got Charlie Werner, who's a person with a family and a name. So that's good. But I'm going to say wide receiver. Wide receiver is a sneaky deep position. I mean, the two starters are both really good. They don't have Kendrick Bourne anymore, but they have Jawan Jennings, who they drafted last year. They have Richie James, who's really good. They have Mohamed Sanu, who's a vet. Travis Benjamin, who's a vet. Kevin White, who I still would like to see something from. He's not even 30 years old yet, and he's had a bunch of injuries, but so did Jason Verrett. And they have River Craycraft, who has just a terrific name. Is there anyone else that I'm missing? I mean, they had. It's
Did you purposefully forget Jalen Hurd? Did you do that?
Jalen Hurd. There's freaking Jalen Hurd too. I mean, it's not necessarily
I think that was on
best.
purpose, Grant.
No, I forgot. How do you not forget Jalen Hurd? But it's not necessarily the best position group on the team. There's a lot of question marks there, but there are like 15 bodies here. So technically it's deep. Technically. Anyway, that's all I got to say. That's our show today. What?
Well, one quick last thing.
Sure.
If you were to say at the end of the season, we look back at the season and you had one guess as to what was the strongest position group on the team for this season, what would you think it would be?
Quarterback, Josh Rosen, Trey Lance all day. Are you kidding? Nate Sudfeld coming in. Why is Nate Sudfeld on this team? Why is Nate Sudfeld in the NFL? Why is Nate Sudfeld still in the league? I don't get it. He must be great in meetings. I can only imagine. He's done like 50 passes in the league.
Any passes during OTAs, minicamp?
He's not the most inspiring, impressive athlete, but he's very tall.
Just remember, the Eagles needed that look at him week 17 to keep the Giants out of the playoffs. Just remember that.
He's been in the league for a little while now. Never had much playing time. Didn't play well when he played, but people are like, look at him as a priority backup. I don't get that. Must be a smart guy. Maybe it's his personality. Maybe he's good at charades. Maybe he's just a fun guy who knows? Nate, I'd love to get to know you and find out. Chuy, great debut, although you're a vet. Maverick, always a pleasure to see you. Just a great door. I mean, the wood, the grain is really nice.
Thank you.
Everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great 4th of July weekend. I'll see you around. Take care, everyone. End the show.